You said you tried veganism for a while. I mean,
Mhm.
a lot of people would, would see you on social media and still tell you, well, a whole food plant-based diet is going to be better. Anyone, you can lose weight on any diet, just a caloric deficit. Why are you eating? Because, veganism saves all the animals and saves the planet, which I, of course, don't agree with. But what was your experience with a vegan diet?
I remember being hungry all the time, trying to figure out what, because I don't like beans. I never have. How to make myself eat these things I did not want to eat. I felt like I had to eat all the time because I just couldn't seem to get enough in me.
Yeah. Okay. And any improvements in weight or any of these conditions that you were dealing with when you were doing that?
I lost a little bit of weight, but I just couldn't seem to make myself eat. The autoimmune stuff, it did not help, actually. It made me feel worse. I think it just was just a huge stressor on the body because I went from thinking about food a lot to I had to think about food all the time. And that was just a huge stress for me. I do think things like the oxalate and the vegetables were not agreeable to me at all because it got to the point where I had a hard time waking up in the morning opening my hands. It was like someone with severe RA or very like a lot of arthritis. I just couldn't open my hands in the mornings till I ran them under hot water and tried to move them around when I was doing the veganism.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you mentioned rheumatoid arthritis, and even with osteoarthritis, a lot of people get it in their hands, and people will say, well, it's just too much weight and it's wearing out your knees. I'm like, what about your hands? You don't walk on your hands, so why are
Mhm.
we getting inflammation and joint damage in our hands, which are not really impacted by how much we weigh, to be honest? And it's really a lot of biology. We're seeing that more and more that our biology, what's going on metabolically affects all our joints, including our non-weight bearing joints like our neck and our hands and things of that nature. Were you ever offered like, I mean, because a lot of people that get into this morbid obese category, they're talked to about gastric bypass procedures, gastric sleeves, bariatric surgery,
Mhm.
drug treatments and things like. Was that ever proposed to you or thought about at any point?
Yes. When I was 17, my dad offered to pay for it.
Mhm.
And I went as far as doing all the nutritional classes. The last thing I had to do was schedule. And I backed out because I'm just like, I do not want to do surgery. Surgery freaked me out. And then I went through it myself when I was probably about 23. I'm like, I think I need to do this. I'm just not losing any weight. I'm gaining weight. Same thing. I went through all the nutritional classes, got all the way up to the scheduled lap band. And then I backed out again because I'm like, I can't do this. I had at that point knew about the autoimmune stuff and it made me very worried about them implanting a device into me. And I just have already autoimmune stuff. So I had no idea how my body would do. I ended up canceling the second time and I said, I'm not going to do it. And I just have not looked back since.
And you said you had a couple you said rheumatoid arthritis. I heard fibromyalgia. What was the other autoimmune issue you had?
Scleroderma.
Scleroderma. Okay, scleroderma. Wow, that's pretty significant. How
Mhm.
did those things affect you? Those autoimmune conditions. What can you describe? What was going on with you?
With the autoimmune stuff.
Yeah. How did that affect you?
Well, other than being in constant pain at 18, it limited my life. In physical therapy, there's a lot of manual therapy that you have to do, which requires your hands. So it was honestly affecting my ability to treat patients because I just couldn't. If I had to do any joint manipulations or things like that, I should be able to do them for 10 minutes, no problem. And I'm struggling at 3 minutes to be able to treat them. Doing any daily activities, terrible. Doing the dishes, 5 minutes, and I just had to stop because my hands would hurt so bad. The scleroderma specifically, it had a lot of skin stuff. And it just honestly, with having so many things, I tell people it's hard to know when where one autoimmune thing starts and the other stops for me. But the biggest thing was just the overall pain. The worst it got was literally just the wind blowing on my skin, hurting. I mean, it was just excruciating, like someone was holding a match to my skin. It was just terrible. I mean, the pain was just unreal.
Yeah, I mean, there's some overlap between some of the symptoms of RA and scleroderma, particularly with the
Mhm.
joint function. So it's hard to tell where one starts or
Mhm.
stops, and the other one starts, I suppose. As a physical therapist, obviously you have probably more knowledge about healthcare than the average person because you're intimately involved and you see patients all the time and you see the general treatment. And as an orthopedic surgeon, I use a lot of physical therapists for post-op care and sometimes just to treat, orthopedic conditions, obviously. Let me ask you, so you went keto. How did that impact these other conditions, your weight and all these other various, medical conditions you had?
I did a lot better on keto. I was not having, because when I was pre-diabetic, I'd go through these episodes where I'd flush and have fluctuations in my blood sugar and feel like I'd faint. That kind of subsided, and the pain got better with the autoimmune. I don't really, my fatty liver just has kind of gotten worse and better over the years as I've gained and lost weight and things like that. But I did see, I'd say, mild to moderate improvements doing keto with the autoimmune things. But the problem is I started to use artificial sweeteners. And then it was just like this slippery downhill slope, reinventing or redoing foods that instead of having regular sugar, like let's say a donut, even though I don't actually just surprisingly like them, but then redoing it with almond flour and stevia and all this. And it's just like mentally that harmed me exponentially because it just led me to binging now on keto foods, which completely defeated the purpose of what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a real problem that people just realize a cookie is a cookie. I don't care if it's vegan, keto, paleo, it's still a cookie. And you have to realize that that's just not something that we should be eating much of, if any. Birthday cake should be maybe eaten on your birthday and not, 7 days a week, like a lot of us tend to do, in some form or fashion. So how did you discover a carnivore diet? What compelled you to do that? Did you think it was crazy? Did you, how did you get involved? Because even today, people still think, hey, carnivore is absolutely nutty. No one should do it. It's dangerous. No one can sustain it, blah, blah, blah. Your heart disease, scurvy, all the stuff we hear, which mostly is nonsense. How did you sort of come to this conclusion to try it?
My brother, actually, he had done carnivore for a year and a half. He always had these weird harebrained diet ideas. And he told me, he's like, at first, when he heard about carnivore, he's like, these people are nutty. He actually said he heard it from you specifically. He was like, this dude's a nut. And then he watched Michaela Peterson. He was like, I think I'm going to try this. So here I am. They moved back to Washington. And he's like, you should try this. Well, I tried it for 2 weeks, but I'm being brutally honest myself. I tried it kind of, I didn't give it my all. And then I ended up in the emergency room thinking I was going to die. Like that was a precipice. Like things had to change because I was in excruciating pain. And I remember looking at my husband, because my husband is, 5'11". He's like 25 pounds overweight. He's not obese at all. And I remember looking at him thinking, good God, here I am wailing in pain in the emergency room. He has to drop everything to take care of me. I've been so selfish. And that when I realized that and acknowledged myself, I was putting my wants over his needs. God, it was empowering, realizing, well, if I made those choices, then I can make different choices. So I watched some that evening, Michaela Peterson talk about her juvenile RA. And then I started thinking, okay, if the autoimmune is causing me so much pain that I'm hardly moving right now, then maybe it can help me with this plus the weight. And literally went from cake one day to carnivore the next. That was it. Done, said and done.